Hi and welcome back to the channel. It is March 14th down here in Southern Ontario, and we are going to be potting up some tomatoes today. We have some great starts. As you can see, the tomatoes are looking pretty tall, starting to have their first true leaves, so it's definitely time to give them a little bit more nutrients, a little bit more soil, to give them some more room. We do have some other annual vegetables and some flowers as well. But the tomatoes are going to be our focus, and we're going to get started. Okay, so here we are with our tomato starts. And for those of you who watched the first video with the seed starting, you know that I use soil blocking, and this year for soil blocking I actually made my own soil mix, soilless soil mix I should say, with coco coir and perlite and vermiculite, so you can definitely find that in my first video. But now the tomato seedlings have sort of gotten the first set of true leaves and starting to show up for the second set. So I want to give them more room, more stability. The soil blocks are going to kind of start, deteriorating over time a little bit. And I just want to make sure that the tomatoes have a continuous supply of nutrients and space for the roots to grow so they don't get stunted. So we're going to do that now. I'm actually reusing some solo cups. If you're anything like me, you have occasionally had a party and maybe bought a giant bag of these and then have a gajillion of them lying around. That was me last year, and I realized instead of buying new nursery pots, I could just reuse these for sowing all kinds of seeds. So that's what I'm going to do. The one hugely important thing for using anything that's not a nursery pot or a flower pot is to add drainage holes, which is what we're going to do. So the easiest, you can do one of many things. You can poke holes, you can get scissors, a knife. Those things just tend to be a little bit more difficult depending on how strong the plastic is. And you do tend to then sometimes crack the plastic, which is not the end of the world. You can still use it. It's just a little bit more work than what I'm about to do. And my method is essentially using a drill. So if you have a drill, then this, in my opinion, is the easiest way to do this. So you can get yourself a stack of a bunch of these cups. You could probably do more than the 4 that I'm going to start with here. You just want to essentially make sure that your bit is long enough to get through those layers. And be careful with this. Obviously, if you're not comfortable using power equipment, get somebody to help you out, but it's pretty straightforward. Get your bit and you either plug in or you get a battery in, and you just get a strong surface. You put down your cups, make sure that you are going forward with your bit, and then you just drill down. And now we have a really nice big drainage hole. You could do a couple of tiny ones, you could do one big one, you could do a few bigger ones. I think for me, this diameter will be just fine. And I think that the water will drain out it adequately, so I'm not too worried. So I'm going to go ahead now and use one of these to, as you can see, they're a little bit grubby because they were sitting in the shed outside and they were used last year, but that's totally fine. So I'm going to use one of these. I'm going to get a little bit of some all-purpose mix. This time around, I just stopped at Canadian Tire, and the best value that I could find was Pro Mix all-purpose mix, which was about $27 for 112 liters of soil. It just made more sense to me, and at this stage I do want to give some nutrients to the seedlings, so I do want a purpose mix with some nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus in there, and some nutrients in there. Otherwise I would have to incorporate some more organic fertilizer into my soilless mix and make a whole lot more of it, and that just doesn't seem feasible to me at this stage. So I did get some Pro Mix all-purpose mix, the big 112 liter one, because I have a lot of seedlings and I'll definitely use it up. So get one of these, scoop some in there so you have about that much, just a little bit on the bottom. And set it up in my seed tray. And I'm just going to moisten and water the mix in these cups first. I just don't want it to be totally dry. And I'm sure you've seen this everywhere else. You don't want your soil to be totally dry and then pack it in and then water it, because it won't water evenly, and then you risk kind of packing in the roots a little bit too tightly, or overpacking the soil, and it's just harder to get it wet in the middle. And you won't get that even moisture for the plant that you really want, especially at this like early developing stage. So get a good amount of water, and I'm even going to check, and there you go, right? So it's dripping down into the tray, which is great. And now I'm going to go tenderly pick up my tomato seedlings, and I'm going to start over here with my chocolate cherry tomatoes, and I'm going to make sure that I use my plant markers, because tomatoes look identical to each other until you actually have the fruit. Same thing with peppers, and frankly same with a lot of brassicas and things. So markers, trust me on this, trust me, ask me how I know. So you're gonna take one of your cups, start at the edge here, take one of my seedlings, see how the soil block holds up and how the roots are doing. Okay, so the soil block is actually, I'm just gonna show you guys. So the soil block is actually holding, like, it's definitely, you know, tender, it's delicate, but it's holding together pretty good. And you can kind of see, so these are roots, the white bits you see there, these are the tomato plant roots, which is so cool to see. So it's a great time to start giving it a little bit more space, right? Because they've reached sort of the outside of their room. And you could leave it here longer, as long as you're fertilizing it, and you could give it a little bit more room, but we're gonna pot up now because the other ones are getting bigger. They're different varieties, so we're gonna do it all at the same time. So we are going to pop this into, I'm actually gonna need a little bit more mix here. Okay, so I'm just gonna fill it up a little bit more. And now I think that's too much. So what I'm trying to get is I want the block to fit in, but I want to put it slightly under so that when I water it, the water doesn't all splash out. So that's perfect. That's kind of what I wanted. And I'm also noticing that this one actually has 3 tiny tomato seedlings. So I have 2 options. I can split this up and pot up each of the seedlings individually, which would give me 4 chocolate cherry plants, or I can snip 2 of these and stick with 2. So I think, I just wish you could smell these. I love the smell of tomato plants. They smell amazing. They just smell like your grandma's kitchen garden. It's amazing. I hate chopping down healthy seedlings. So what I'm gonna do, and I think I have enough space for this, is I'm going to split them up. So beautiful split. It's gorgeous. And I'm going to separate them a little bit more. This is the beautiful thing about soil blocking too, is that it's so easy to separate. Okay. And now we have 2 gorgeous, nicely developed baby root systems of 2 baby tomato plants. So I'm just going to pot these individually. except now I need a little bit more soil because I don't want to bury the leaves, obviously. Okay, so here we are. Pop that in there. Put a little bit more soil on top. And I'm showing you guys the whole process, unedited, cumbersome, as it often is for a lot of us doing things like this at home. And so you'll also get a sense of what it actually looks like to have a little home garden and doing your seeds at home in early March, middle of March, and, you know, having to like bend over and pick up more soil and, you know, make decisions about your seedlings. And, you know, you're not on your own. You're not alone. It's okay. It's messy and I'm covered in dirt and it's great. So that's one baby tomato seedling there. Give him some more water. See, and this is exactly what happens with dry soil. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. Probably not. But what's happening is that the water is sitting on top. It's going to sit on top for a while until it has a chance to kind of seep into the mixture. So that's why it's not ideal to work with dry soil. And I'm using it straight from the bag because it's a big bag and I don't have a bin right now to pre-moisten it. So it's not ideal. But we're okay, and I think that's gonna be good. So we've got this tiny little baby tomato seedling in its new home, and this is gonna be good in here for, I wanna say, hopefully until end of April, and then we'll see how fast it grows. The chocolate cherry ones grow a lot slower than the other tomatoes. So for comparison, this is chocolate cherry. I won't forget my marker, because I almost put it down and then, you know, where we would be. So for comparison, this is the German stripe. So you've got your German stripe and the roots here. So this one's definitely ready to go. And this is the cherry tomato, and they were planted at exactly the same time, same day, same soil mix, same light. So this is just a much smaller variety. So this one could probably stay and live in the soil block for another few weeks, but this one's ready to go. So I'm doing them at the same time. It'll be fine. It'll be okay. So same process with this one. Get myself a container, pre-moisten it. If you can, get a little bit more water in there. It's feeling a little dry. And also these are wet. Because I water them regularly, keep them moist. Plop that in there. Oh, and just as I plop that in there, the soil block just fell apart, which is totally fine. It's ready to go. A little bit more water. A little bit more soil. Okay, and that's starting to look pretty good. So we've got a dozen more, I think, tomatoes, and then about a dozen or so pepper plants, little baby pepper plants to go. But the process is the same for everything else. Pot up, make sure you have drainage holes, get yourself a mix, nice and snug, lots of water, allow it to drain, and back under the grow lights. Okay, so here we are all set up with our tomato transplants. I'm gonna put them right back under their grow light and keep them evenly watered. And when they grow to about yay, we'll either have the opportunity to put them outside because it's going to be warm enough, which would be consistently about 15 degrees Celsius for tomatoes, not dipping lower than that at night or at any point. Dangers of frost has long passed. or we're gonna have to pot them up to bigger pots and give them some support and keep them indoors longer. So depending on the weather, we will see, and on they grow.